Hey guys, tonight we venture into the most chaotic contract negotiation in divine history. The sky's still blushing gold over Asgard, but the mood, somewhere between smug and suspicious. Gods are arguing over bricks, wagers are being made with impossible stakes, and a stranger waits at the gates with a horse that moves like thunder wrapped in silk. You're standing right in the middle of it, and yes, you probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, and post your location and what time it is where you're listening from. I love seeing how far across the world this little firelight stretches. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're not exactly a hero, but that's never stopped you before. You walk into the courtyard just as they seal the deal out and nods. Heimdall clenches his jaw, and Freya's already halfway to yelling. The builder is massive, silent, and not from around here. His eyes are too steady. His smile doesn't move past his teeth. He wants a price so outrageous it should have been laughed out of the room, but it wasn't. He wants Freya's hand, the sun and the moon, in exchange for building a wall strong enough to keep the frost giants out forever. No tools but his. Oh, no help but his horse, and the whole job must be finished in one season. And someone guess who convinced the gods to say yes, so long as he finished on time. That someone being you, Loki, trickster, shapeshifter, compulsive stirrer of cosmic soup, and as usual, you didn't exactly lie. You just bent the likelihood of success into a pretzel and handed it to them with a grin. He'll never finish in time, you whispered. Let him try. Here's the thing about Old Norse gods. They love a deal until the other guy starts winning. The builder, this wordless hulk of a man, doesn't flinch, doesn't blink. He simply whistles, and from behind him trots Svalfari. The stallion so graceful he makes even Sleipnir seem like a chunky donkey with ADHD. Okay, that comparison's a bit personal, and you'll see why later. The horse does everything. He hauls stone that should take 12 oxen. He places each slab as if he knows sacred geometry firsthand. His muscles ripple like sculpted rivers. Within 3 weeks the wall is halfway up, and the gods start to sweat through their armor. There's an actual historical precedent for this, by the way. Many ancient civilizations had myths involving divine architects building wonders, most notably in Mesopotamia, where temples were said to be crafted by godlike masons with help from animals who knew secrets men didn't. Anyway, back to you. You. Try to keep your face calm, but even you can smell what's coming, and it reeks of horse sweat and failure. Freyja storms up to you in full battle glam and slaps you so hard, your teeth rearrange into a runic riddle. Odin simply mutters, "Fix it, Loki," and walks off like he's already mourning his eye. And here's where things get weird. You think, you pace, you twist your tongue in your teeth, and then you say out loud, like a total lunatic, "What if I seduce the horse?" The gods don't even blink. That's how normal you've made abnormality. But let's be honest. This isn't just damage control. This is vengeance wrapped in chaos. You know you're the one who sold them the snake oil plan. But deep down, a part of you resents them for being dumb enough to buy it. Maybe you just want to watch them squirm a bit longer. Maybe you want to punish them for needing you again. Or maybe you just love being the wildfire they can't control. Still, even you didn't plan what came next. You vanish for 3 days. No one knows where you go. But what happens out there in the mist-thick forests just beyond Asgard's edge will birth more than whispers. It'll reshape myths. It'll plant the seed of something ancient inside you literally. And yes, that pun was entirely intentional. Historians still argue whether this myth was meant to be taken literally or symbolically. Some say it's an old fertility tale. Others believe it's a coded message about shifting identities and transformation. And then there's the theory that it was simply Norse humor gone off the rails. Like if Monty Python wrote divine genealogy, but standing here, feeling the chill of the builder's perfect wall, cast its shadow over your regrets. One thing for certain. You've just promised to seduce a supernatural stallion, and failure isn't an option, because the builder is gaining ground. The gods are closing ranks, and Freya, she's sharpening her sword. You wait until dusk, because that's the kind of thing you do slip into problems during the in-between hours, where light starts to give up and shadows don't ask to. Many questions, the forest's edge hums like it's holding its breath. Birds hush, branches creak without wind, and Svalfari, that muscular miracle of a horse, trots into the clearing right on schedule. No rider, just instinct and divinely impossible horsepower. You watch him from behind a tree, naked in more ways than one. Your form is already shifting, limbs cracking inward, spine shrinking hips, stretching into the unholy geometry of a four-legged silhouette. You're becoming a mare, slowly, carefully, sensually. It's hard to say. This is unfamiliar territory, even for you. Your tail flicks, you take your first step. It's awkward, like learning to walk and flirt at the same time. But the new instincts help. Smells bloom in your nostrils. Sweat, grass, something ancient and equine and wildly alive. You breathe it in like a potion, and it hits you somewhere behind your ribs. Swalafari notices you. His ears prick. He stops, then he stares. And for the first time in your very long, very complicated life, you blush. The chase begins. You bolt. Just a flicker of your new tail in the wind, and Svalfari follows with the thundering grace of something bred by storms and arrogance. He's fast, too fast, but that's part of the fun. You lead him in looping circles through the trees, doubling back, darting behind rocks, teasing him with just enough distance to keep him interested. From the treetops, ravens watch, silent, unreadable. Maybe they're Odin's. Maybe they're just curious. Either way, you feel their judgment perched on your shoulders. And you can't even shrug anymore, because you don't have shoulders. You leap a fallen log and land perfectly, for hooves striking moss like a drummer tapping out a curse. Svalfari's close now. His breath steams behind you like dragon smoke. You realize to lot you're enjoying this. It's not just about distraction anymore. Something inside you hums with primal joy. Maybe it's the magic. Maybe it's the madness. Maybe it's the loneliness you've never admitted. There's a fringe historical theory just to break. The tension for a second, that trickster gods across cultures represent suppressed aspects of human psychology. In Gungian terms, they're the shadow self, surfacing inconvenient truths in weird, symbolic ways, which would explain a lot about tonight, because here you are, disguised as a mare, willingly seducing a horse to prevent a builder from finishing a wall so that your gods don't have to give up the literal sun. And yet, for once, you don't feel like a villain. You feel free. The forest opens into a meadow. The moon's risen now, a pale coin in a dark well. Svalfari catches up, nudges you with his nose, and lets fade the camera out here. PG 213, remember. But suffice it to say, mission accomplished. The next morning, the builder screams. His perfect schedule has broken. Svalfari is gone. The work halts. Stones lie untouched, and the sun hasn't risen properly since. He rages across the job site, fists trembling, and in that moment, his disguise crumbles. He's not a man, not a mason, not anything close. He's a Jatina frost giant, in magical drag, trying to outwit the gods and steal what wasn't his. And the only reason he's failed is because you got creative with anatomy. Odin's not surprised. Thor's already cracking his knuckles. But here's the thing. They knew this was a possibility. They knew the deal smelled like a scam, and they said nothing because it was easier to let you fall on the sword. Or in this case, fall on the horse. That realization punches deeper than expected. You thought you were playing them, but maybe, just maybe, you were the tool in their hand all along. Still, Asgard survives the scam. The builder dies. Thor hammers his skull into mountain salad, and the gods celebrate their clever escape with mead and casual hypocrisy. You don't return. You can't. Your form is stuck, shifting, unstable. The magic lingers. The forest becomes your refuge, your womb, your exile. You curl under trees and sleep too deeply. You dream of hoofbeats and snow. And all the while, something inside you grows. Something alive, it kicks. You don't panic. Not yet. You've been many things in many lives. A snake, a bird, a woman, a lie. You can handle this, but this. This isn't just shape-shifting. This is pregnancy. And that Loki is something you've never bargained for. You lose track of time in the forest. Days fold into nights with no edges. Your belly swells. The air thickens with midsummer pollen. The crows still follow you, but now they keep a cautious distance, as if even they aren't sure what's inside you. Your hooves ache. You dream in circles, memories, chasing themselves through your mind like wolves around a campfire. You dream of Svalfari, of course, not romantically, just vividly. The curve of his neck, the steam from his flanks, the weight of inevitability. You're still not sure whether he chose you, or whether you baited him into choosing. There's a difference, and it matters now in ways it didn't before. Pregnancy, as it turns out, is not a metaphor. It is a biological revolt. You lumber between trees, awkward and sweating, a god disguised as a beast, carrying what no myth ever prepared. You, four. And even in this humiliating majesty, your mind hums with suspicion. Because something about that builder didn't sit right. Not just the deal, not just the hidden giant under a glamour, something deeper. You. Remember Odin's silence during the negotiation. The way he let you speak, the way he watched Freya fume and said nothing, the way he said, "Fix it." Like this was all part of the plan. And maybe it was. Historians still argue whether Odin genuinely feared the frost giants, or if he manipulated their threats to justify his own power plays. Some theories suggest he allowed incursions just to provoke unity among the gods, manufacturing a common enemy, and that wall, a convenient symbol, a distraction, a boundary meant to show dominance, not safety. So you start to wonder, was the wall even necessary, or was it bait? You remember a quote, can't remember who said it. A wall keeps out the enemy until it becomes the cage that holds you in. Now here you are, a mare with 8 hooves, kicking inside you, trotting through a divine no man's land, because the gods needed plausible deniability. And oh, how plausible you've made it. You find a riverbank. The moon hovers like a coin waiting to be flipped. You lower your aching body into the reeds and groan through contractions that feel like thunder being born sideways. And you remember something stupid in that moment. The sunscreen made of crocodile dung that Egyptians used. It flashes across your mind like a stray lightning bolt of trivia. Because pain makes the brain weird. And you think, I would kill for some of that right now. It happens all at once. Your body tenses. And then he's here. He slips into the world without a sound, 8 legs, sleek gray hide, eyes like storm clouds and memory. He doesn't cry. He just blinks at you like he already knows what you've done, who you are, and where this ends. And even though you're no longer the mare, not completely, your heart clenches with a maternal panic you've never felt. You've given birth to a thing of legend, and now you have to figure out what to do with it. You nuzzle him gently. He doesn't flinch. His breath smells like pine and ozone. And as he tries to stand, all 8 legs moving with elegant hesitation, you realize something else. He isn't just a horse. He's a symbol of what? You're not sure yet, but symbols have power. And this one was born from deception, vengeance, and unintended consequences. That makes him dangerous back in Asgard. The wall stands unfinished. The gods drink and pretend none of this happened. Thor brags about slaying the builder, as if he hadn't shown up after everything was over. Freya keeps her distance from you. She never says thank you. Odin doesn't even look you in the eye, but he takes the horse. Oh yes, he takes him. He looks at Sleipnir, like he's been waiting his whole life for this mount, this gift, this proof, that even chaos has value if you ride it well. He names him Sleipnir, and Sleipnir lets him, and you. You stand in the hallway of Valhalla, bleeding from places you can't name, watching your child trot off beside the Allfather like a prize ox in a victory parade, and it hits you. You weren't just the trickster this time, you were the trap. You stay in the shadows for a while after that, and no, not in the fun, smug way you usually do, skulking in corners, sipping mead, waiting to drop some inconvenient truth like a punchline laced with venom. This time, you're really hiding, healing, hurting. The halls of Asgard buzz with stories about the wall, the builder Thor's last-minute hammer drop, and Odin's new 8-legged ride, like he won it in a raffle. Your name barely gets mentioned, and when it does, it's with that tone, you know, the one, the let's not talk about Loki right now voice, because no one knows exactly what you did out there, but they know. And worse, they need to pretend they don't. You find yourself loitering by rivers again, watching reflections that don't stay. Still, Sleipnir's face haunts the water, half you, half stranger. He's thriving. Of course, already galloping across realms with Odin, like the world's weirdest company car. And yeah, that stings a bit. Here's the thing, Odin doesn't ride Sleipnir because he's a good father figure. He rides Sleipnir because Sleipnir is fast, the fastest, capable of traversing the 9 realms, and even slipping into hell itself without breaking stride. That's the real reason Odin wanted him, because knowledge isn't enough. Not for the Allfather. He wants access, and Sleipnir is access incarnate. There's a story, one of those half-forgotten ones, that tells of Odin using Sleipnir to visit Mimir's well again, the well he already sacrificed an eye for, the well that never gives a straight answer. But with Sleipnir under him, Odin can go deeper than before, into places not even Yggdrasil dares stretch. Historians still argue whether Sleipnir represents time, memory, or just speed. Some say the 8 legs are a symbolic reference to ancient funeral biers carried by 4 men, 8 legs total. Others think it's a shamanic symbol, representing a spirit journey across dimensions. But to you, he's just your son, and he doesn't know you. You start laughing in the woods one night too hard, too long, until your ribs hurt, because somewhere along the way, this whole mess stopped being a prank and became your legacy. You didn't mean to be a parent. You were trying to break a timeline, not start one. But Sleipnir lives, gallops, serves, and you limp. Literally. Your body's still not quite right. The shape-shifting magic went too deep. Sometimes your fingers twitch like hooves. Sometimes your back seizes up like something's trying to stretch out wings that were never there. The forest becomes your exile and your mirror. You build a little shack. You trap fish with your hands. You stop using your voice unless absolutely necessary. Because what would you even say? Hey, guys, remember when I got pregnant to save you from a mistake I tricked you into making in the first place? Not exactly bedtime material, though. Speaking of bedtime, you start to remember the night you gave birth, in bits and pieces, how the stars seemed to shift as Sleipnir arrived, how time felt like it paused just long enough to let a new thread sneak into the tapestry. You wonder if the Norns noticed, if they snipped someone else's fate to make room for this one, and you wonder what would have happened if you had refused. Let the wall rise, let Freya go, let the sun and moon fall into Jotun hands, and the world change forever. Would that have been worse, or just different? Odin sends a raven your way eventually. No message, just a look. You stare at it for a long time, and then throw a rock, not to kill it, just to make a point. You're not ready to be pulled back into the game. Not yet, because now you carry something no magic can undo. Not just the memory, or the child, or the Shame, you carry the knowledge of what it costs to be the fix-it guy. To be the one they blame and silence and toast in secret. And worst of all, to be the only one who remembers how much it hurt. You're not exactly sure how long it's been when you finally leave the forest, but the world feels older, thinner at the edges, the kind of thin that happens when something big has passed through a storm, a prophecy, or just the aftermath of a decision that nobody wants to talk about. You walk, yes, walk because you're back in a human shape now. Mostly your gait is strange, hips remembering a weight that isn't there, phantom echoes of hooves still whispering in your stride. It makes the gods uneasy when you appear in Asgard again. Thor gives you a look like he's trying to decide whether to punch or pity you. Freya avoids your gaze entirely, but Odin nods just once, as if to say, "We both knew it would end like this." You don't respond because there's nothing to say, not in a room full of gods who rewrote the story the moment it was over. In their version, the wall was saved, the trickster interfered, the giant exposed himself how rude, and everyone learned a valuable lesson. Except you, because your version doesn't end with a punchline. It ends with 8 legs trotting away into myth, and your name scrubbed off the credits like a ghostwriter on a prophecy. They still whisper about Sleipnir in the halls, how he can gallop up the roots of Yggdrasil, his hooves never slipping, how he carried Odin to hell to beg the corpse of Baldur for forgiveness, how no beast, no spell, no fate has ever outrun him. You watch from the shadows as Sleipnir trots past the gates, a blur of gray and wind, Odin perched like a storm cloud on his back, and for a heartbeat, Sleipnir glances your way. He doesn't stop, he doesn't nod, but he knows, and that's enough, sort of. You retreat again, not to hide this time, but to reshape, rethink, because you've done something no god, no giant, no mortal ever managed. You made life, you made meaning, even if it came dressed as madness. There's an obscure Scandinavian folktale you once heard, barely a whisper in the old tongues, about an 8-legged beast born from chaos, who would one day carry not just gods, and that's the part nobody gets. Sleipnir doesn't just move through the realms, he moves through stories. He carries every secret you've ever hidden, every trick you've ever pulled, every version of you that ever existed. And you're not just the father, not just the mother. You're the myth's broken backbone, the part nobody wants to mention, but without which the whole thing would fall apart. Historians still argue whether Loki created Sleipnir as a punishment, a sacrifice, or an accident. They never agree. They never will. Because myths don't answer cleanly. They twist, they resist, they evolve, and that's what you are now. A story still shifting in the dark. You lie awake sometimes under your makeshift roof, watching the stars through the cracks. The sky feels wider now, like it's trying to stretch itself to make room for what you've done. Sometimes you hear hooves in the distance, and sometimes, just for a moment, you think he's coming back. But Sleipnir belongs to the world now. You gave him form, Odin gave him purpose, and one day he'll carry a rider to Ragnarok itself. But tonight, you're just here, in the quiet, in the aftermath. No gods demanding favors, no children demanding answers, just you, the forest, and the soft hum of the 9 realms spinning. And beneath all that, a thought begins to form. Not regret, not pride, just the slow realization. You might have changed fate more by giving birth than by bending reality. And for a trickster, that's the cruelest joke of all. So here you are, still in one piece, though that's debatable on bad days. You've taken many forms over the years. Fire, fox, fish, falcon. Even that time you became a mist just to sneak into a vault, not your finest moment, but effective. But this form post-Sleipnir, post-silence, it sticks differently. Because now you carry something the others can't see. Not guilt, not shame, not even pride. Just the knowledge of what you're capable of. That changes a trickster. You wander more now, quietly, between borders. You drift through Midgard, disguised as a merchant with too many teeth. Through Elfheim as a bard who never sings. Through Svartalfheim pretending to be a broken clock that still ticks in perfect rhythm. And everywhere you go, people whisper of the eight-legged one. In Midgard. They call him Skyhooves and claim he pulls the northern lights behind him like a scarf. In Helheim. They say Sleipnir carries regrets. Regrets in a saddlebag stitched with your name. There's a tombstone somewhere in Midgard with a scratched rune on it. No body beneath, just a stone. And when you press your palm against it, you feel your own heartbeat responding. That rune, it's the old shape of your name. Not Loki, the liar. Not Loki, the Laufey son. Just Loki. The one who crossed the line. You laugh when you see it, because finally, someone remembered that the story isn't about the wall or the horse, or the giant. It's about what you did when the gods abandoned nuance. There's a tavern in Vanaheim where you sit, sometimes half-shadow, sipping bitterberry wine. Listening to wandering skalds, get the story. Almost right that they say, you fooled the gods. They say you stopped a war. They say you birthed a steed that will one day carry Odin to his death. They never say why, but you know why. You weren't saving Asgard. You were saving the chaos from Asgard. Because had that builder succeeded, had he won Freya, the sun and the moon, you know what Odin would have done. He would have declared war on Jotunheim again. He would have scorched the peace, just to prove he could. Odin needs enemies to stay wise. You've known that for longer than anyone, and so you did the unthinkable. You let yourself become the scapegoat, the stallion, the savior. You became a cautionary tale wearing a grin, and when they tell this story around fires, in dreams, across oceans, they always skip the part where the trickster didn't laugh. That part gets left out, intentionally. There's a small wooden carving in the corner of a forgotten shrine in a Midgard forest. It's not really. Just a little horse with too many legs and one eye carved into its side. No name, no offerings, but you pass by sometimes. You tip your head and you whisper, I remember. Because Sleipnir may ride for Odin, but he dreams in your voice. And when Ragnarok comes and, it will ticking closer with every heartbeat. It won't be Odin's name that Sleipnir echoes through the screaming skies. It'll be yours. Historians still argue whether Loki's greatest trick was surviving the consequences of his own cleverness. Some claim this horseborn saga was his redemption. Others insist it was his first true descent into darkness. But they all miss the point. This wasn't redemption. It was redefinition. You didn't change for them, you changed the game. And now the gods walk carefully around you. Not because they fear you, but because they owe you, even if they'll never say it out loud. By now, your name is the punchline of every whispered tale across the realms. In the halls of Asgard. It's always, don't let Loki near your wine or your livestock. In Midgard, you're the stuff of bedtime stories meant to scare children into behaving, and in Helheim, you're a kind of legend even the dead don't trust. But here's the secret nobody really admits. They all need you. Because where the gods build laws, you carve loopholes. Where they declare order, you sow questions. And where they set walls, you become the thing that walks right through them. Or in one infamous case, births the thing that gallops through them with 8 hooves and 0 regard for zoning laws. Sleipnir becomes more than just a steed. He's a symbol, a myth layered onto other myths, like lacquer on an old wooden shield. In Midgard, ancient Norse carvings depict a strange horse with 8 legs spiraling like infinity loops. Some scholars still debate whether it was ever meant to be literal. Maybe Sleipnir was an allegory for shamanic journeying. Maybe he's a metaphor for transcending the physical plane. Maybe he's just fast, quicker than death, swifter than fate, able to ferry Odin into realms where even prophecy dares not tread. You've seen it, felt it. The way Sleipnir moves, he doesn't just run, he vanishes forward. Like reality gets pulled in his wake, and every time he does, your heart skips. because there's a part of you still tethered to him. You don't know what part, exactly flesh, soul, or something stranger, but you feel it tug when he crosses boundaries, like someone walking over your own grave in reverse. One night, you sit on a high cliff near the Bifrost and watch Sleipnir return from a journey. Odin's perched on his back like a war-drunk raven, eyes glassy with new visions. He doesn't see you in the shadows, but Sleipnir does. He slows only for a second, hooves quiet on the stone. There's a moment so brief it almost breaks your heart, where he turns his head, not toward Odin, toward you. And then he's gone again, into the golden light of the gods' road. You stay long after they're gone, because what else is there to do? You've made something divine, something that defies explanation, something Odin depends on, though he'll never say it. Historians still argue whether Odin's ability to outthink the giants came from Mimir's well, or from his access to Sleipnir. The truth, both. Because what good is wisdom if you can't reach the places it hides? And Sleipnir's son has taken Odin farther than any spell, sword, or sermon ever could. It's a strange legacy, not the one you planned, certainly not the one anyone else planned, but it's yours. And as you lie beneath a tree older than language, fingers tapping rhythms into the dirt, you realize something else. You've created more than chaos. You've created continuity. The gods will fade. The realms will collapse. Ragnarok will come, screaming and glorious. But Sleipnir, he'll keep running, because he doesn't belong to prophecy. He belongs to movement itself. And you trickster, you mother of monsters, you god of inconvenient truths will always be part of what pushes the story forward, even if no one ever thanks you. Especially if no one thanks you. You've stopped trying to explain yourself. Long gone are the days when you'd leap up in council halls and justify your schemes with clever speeches and a grin that curled like a fox's tail. These days, you let the stories do the talking, and trust me, they talk loudly. In Jotunheim, they tell of a god who turned mare to save the sky. In Svartalfheim, they carve charms shaped like 8-legged horses and bury them beneath the foundations of new homes. For speed, yes, but also for protection. As if Sleipnir's hooves might outrun bad luck itself. And in Midgard, they do what mortals always do. They forget you. Or worst, they sanitize you. There's a children's book now. Bright colors, happy gods. No mention of gender bending, transformations, or long, painful labors in a forest clearing. In it, Sleipnir just appears. A gift, they say. From Loki to Odin, a gift. You laugh when you see it. Sitting in a dusty bookstall, hidden between sagas and war songs. The illustration shows you sort of smiling as you present the horse to Odin like a child handing over a drawing. Sleipnir looks like a carnival ride. No sweat, no screaming, no shadows. You buy the book anyway. There's something deeply funny about it. Not ha-ha funny, just mythologically ironic. Because that's what time does to chaos. It trims the fangs, rounds the edges, and sticks it in a classroom. But you remember. You remember the stone beneath your knees, the sky cracking like a frozen pond, the sound Sleipnir made when he took his first breath, like the wind deciding to scream and sing at the same time. And you remember that he didn't cry. He galloped right out of you and into legend. There's a question you've never answered, one you've carried like a pebble in your shoe for ages now. Did Odin know? Did he know what would happen when he asked you to stall the builder? Did he expect you to trick him, to transform? To do what no other god would dare? Historians still argue whether Odin foresaw the Sleipnir incident using runes, ravens, or that unnerving hunch he always seemed to have. But even the best historians don't know Odin like you do. Odin doesn't foresee. He sets the board, then watches everyone else try to guess the game, and you're the only piece he's never been able to control, which is probably why he keeps you around, or at least kept. You haven't been in the halls of Asgard for a long while now. Not properly. You pass through sometimes in other faces, other forms you watch from behind goblets and shadows. You listen, and what you hear, it's changing. They don't laugh as loudly at your name anymore. They whisper. There's a quiet reverence creeping into their jokes, like they're not sure if you're still listening. They should be, because you never stop listening, and he listens to you. Think he hears every whisper of your name that hits the wind. That's how horses work, always tuned to thunder. You wonder sometimes if he resents you, not because of what you did, but because of what you didn't do. You never claimed him. You handed him to Odin, just like the storybook says. But the storybook skips what came after it, skips the way Sleipnir looked back, the way he hesitated before stepping forward, as if asking, "Are you sure?" And you said nothing, because how do you explain the shape of sacrifice to a newborn? How do you tell your son born, not of love or lust, but of desperation and cleverness and a touch of madness, that you can't be what he needs? So you smiled, and you let Odin take the reins. And now you're not sure if Sleipnir forgives you. But here's the thing, and it might be the truest thing you've ever thought. Forgiveness doesn't matter. What matters is that he rides every time his hooves strike the air. You know the world still spins in a rhythm you helped set. And if that's not magic, you don't know what is. Time, like Sleipnir, doesn't walk, it gallops. And while the gods age slowly, myth grows faster than memory. Stories tangle, details blur, and even the sharpest truths get dulled by the telling. Lie, especially the ones that became truth. So let's set something straight. You didn't give Sleipnir to Odin because you were afraid. You didn't give him up out of loyalty. And it wasn't some grand, selfless gesture. You did it because it was the only move left on the board, and because the gods, for all their oaths and mead hall speeches, never truly cared for the weight of consequences. They wanted the wall, the sky, the sun, and the girl land. They wanted to pay nothing for it. You just made that happen. At cost, your cost, Sleipnir is the receipt now. Centuries after the wall stands and the builder's bones have turned to frostbitten dust, Asgard still rides him like a trophy, like a parade float carved from your womb. You've watched him win wars just by arriving, and sometimes late at night, you wonder, what does he think of you now? There's no shrine to Loki the mother, no songs, no runes etched in your honor, not even a passing toast in the halls where warriors shout your name in jest. Historians still argue whether the gods deliberately erased that chapter, or if it was simply too strange to preserve. Outlier material, the kind of thing academics sigh over before skipping to the bloodier parts. But not everyone forgot, in some corners of Midgard, where the old traditions still breathe in moss and fog witches, whisper your story in round, secret circles. Not the neat version, the real one. The one where a god became a mayor. Not to win, not to lose, but to intervene. Because if there's one thing Loki always understood, crossing it is the only way to survive. One such witch, a sharped crone with fingers like frostbitten roots, once told a child, "The trickster isn't evil, boy. He's just the only one brave enough to do what must be done when everyone else is too holy to get their hands dirty." That child grew up to lead a rebellion, and you just kept walking. Because what else could you do? Vanaheim, that never flows the same way twice. They say if you follow it backward, it leads to places you've forgotten. You once sat by its banks, barefoot, watching Sleipnir gallop across the clouds above. Rider, just the horse, dot free, and for a moment, you saw it, that glimmer of what could have been. A world where you raised him, a world where the gods let you be more than their scapegoat. But that world isn't this one here. Of every story, the storm beneath the stillness, the question mark carved into every answer, and Sleipnir. He is your exclamation point. A living, galloping punctuation mark at the end of a sentence the gods have tried for centuries to rewrite. He'll outrun them. He already has. You've grown quieter, not out of shame or regret, but because even chaos knows when to observe. You sit beneath Yggdrasil now and trace the movement of stars through its branches. You watch mortals burn stories into their bones, and gods pretend they're the authors of fate. You don't speak because you don't need to. Your legacy gallops louder than any boast ever could. Sleipnir rides across the Bifrost again tonight. You hear it long before you see it, the distant, rhythmic drumbeat of hooves that don't quite touch the ground. Like thunder caught between dimensions, like a heart that refuses to quit. Odin's on his back again. Of course he is. Cloak billowing, wolves at his heels, eye full of knowing and never enough answers. He rides Sleipnir like a king rides conquest, arrogantly, desperately. Like he's trying to prove he belongs in the saddle, and Sleipnir lets him. But he never forgets you. You can feel it in the way he moves, graceful but sharp-edged, like someone carrying a story they were never allowed to tell. Historians still argue whether Sleipnir is a creature of war or of wisdom. Some say he was bred for battle, others that he was born to ferry the dead. A few even claim he was made as a bridge between dimensions, a breathing bifrost. But you know the truth. He was born to complicate things, to challenge categories, to be too fast for neat conclusions. Like you didn't just make a horse. You made a paradox. A creature that shouldn't exist by any natural law of gods or beasts, yet does flawlessly, defiantly. That's the trick, really. Not just to break rules, but to make the broken thing beautiful. You remember the moment you realized Sleipnir would outlive you. It wasn't sad. It wasn't even unfair. It was inevitable. Like the sun setting, or Odin pretending he thought of something before you did. You built your own replacement, but not in bitterness, in brilliance. Every time Sleipnir carries Odin into a new war, a new riddle, a new whispering cave of fate, your presence is there, hoof by hoof, shadow by shadow. No one speaks it aloud, but they all feel it, the ghost of you clinging to that saddle, grinning like a storm cloud, and you know, what? That's enough. You don't need the bards to write you love songs. You don't need shrines or sagas. You built something real. Something with 8 legs and eyes that remember more than they should. There are nights when Sleipnir runs alone. No Odin, no burden, just freedom. He gallops past the moon, through thunder, over the hush of sleeping cities, and sometimes he circles back and lands near you. Not close enough to touch, but close enough to see. You lock eyes, and the world goes still. Not because of magic, because of recognition. He knows you, and you know that he knows it is, in its way, the purest relationship you've ever had. No expectations, no betrayal. Just mutual understanding, forged in pain, absurdity, and the raw will to exist, despite everything. A mother and a son, a god and a godling, 2 impossibilities, running parallel across a sky too small to contain either. Of you no one else sees it. They're too busy reading the old stories. The wrong stories, the safe ones. Let them, because out here beneath the tree, beneath the stars, beneath the stirs, you know what really matters. You weren't a mistake. He wasn't an accident. And together, you redefined the map. You don't often dream, but when you do, it's of hooves on glass, not ice glass. Clear, brittle, and impossibly smooth, stretching endlessly beneath Sleipnir's stride. Each step echoes like thunder in a library, and in the dream, you're never quite sure whether he's running toward something or away. The gods, for all their visions and Valkyries, don't dream like this. They sleep with swords beneath their pillows, and wake with war in their mouths. But your dreams are curious, questioning, strange in that deep, bone-level way that makes you wake up whispering your own name, just to remember who you are. And the weirdest part, you think Sleipnir dreams them too. Sometimes you can feel it, that flicker of connection, like a string pulled tight between your chest and a distant star. You wake up gasping, and somewhere out there, a horse opens his eyes on a battlefield. Confused. Call it magic, call it memory, call it maternal instinct gone sideways. You just call it him. Historians still argue whether Sleipnir inherited any of your powers. Did the shapeshifter god pass down more than just speed and grace? Some say yes, that he slips between worlds not just physically, but mentally. That he sees more than he should. That he knows what's coming and rides anyway. But no one ever asks if he inherited your loneliness. Because what do you do when you're too unique to be mirrored? You gallop, fast enough to outrun your questions. He doesn't belong in Asgard. Not really, he's useful there, sure. Beloved even, but belonging. That's something different. That's family. That's someone asking, are you hungry? Instead of, are you ready? And Odin, he doesn't ask either. Odin takes, Odin commands, Odin rides. But he does not ask, you do. You always did. That's why Sleipnir knows your voice, even now, when centuries have stretched between you like frost across a window pane. That's why when he pauses on a ridge, staring at the world below, it's your words he hears in the wind. Go where they won't. It's what you whispered the first time he walked, you. Remember that day, the forest still smelled of panic and pine. You were half wild, barely returned to yourself. And there he stood at legs, strong as myth, eyes wide as the sky. You didn't say hello. You didn't say goodbye. You just said, go where they won't. And he did, and he still does. In the mist-thick places where even gods won't tread, Sleipnir rides. Over Helheim's black rivers, under the dead stars of Alfheim, through the dreaming ruins of Niflheim where silence has teeth. Wherever fear grows tall, he runs right through it. Sometimes you wonder what he sees in those places. Sometimes you wonder if he's looking for you, but you don't go to him. You never have, because part of loving something that came from you is knowing when not to chase it. You didn't give Sleipnir up because you didn't care. You did it because you did, and deep down you trust him. Even when you don't trust yourself, you don't need to be near him to know. He's yours. You don't need to hear his voice to know. It would sound like thunder and water and the end of a sentence. You never got to finish. You don't need to touch him, because when the sky shifts and the stars blink twice, you feel it, and that's enough. You've never been one for statues, too stiff, too silent, too easy to chip at the edges, and forget who they were meant to honor. And besides, can you imagine anyone trying to sculpt Sleipnir? 8 legs, endless momentum, eyes like mirrors, tail like wildfire. No stone could hold him, but still, they tried. Somewhere in the green hush of Midgard, there's a village with a cracked stone carving. No name, no plaque, just a weathered outline of a horse with too many legs and a faint, almost invisible rune carved into the base. Mother of movement. You didn't put it there, but someone remembered. Historians still argue whether that statue predates the Christian missionaries who swept through with their burning faith and shorter time. They debate whether it's Loki depicted there, or some lost fertility spirit, or just a local legend gone lopsided over centuries of rain and storytelling. But you feel it. It's not about vanity. It's about proof. The kind that can't be burned or rewritten or forgotten under a pile of scrolls. The kind etched in stone, left behind like a breadcrumb trail of your truth. You wonder sometimes if the gods knew how much you let happen, how often you bent the rules instead of breaking them, how often you stepped forward, not to cause trouble, but to contain it, because chaos, real chaos, isn't wild screaming and broken glass. It's a room full of people who pretend they can control what they don't understand. And you've always understood that better than anyone. Take Sleipnir. They thought they were getting a weapon, a mount, a tool. What they got was a messenger, a bridge, a story they couldn't control. Galloping through the sky with your eyes and your heartbeat and your need to exist in ways they never expected. You see it now, don't you? You didn't lose anything, you evolved. Your trick wasn't turning into a mare. It wasn't fooling the builder. It wasn't escaping blame. The real trick, the greatest trick, was turning consequence into creation. That's not something even Odin can do. He forgets things, trims the story, makes it neat. You remember. You remember the smell of Sleipnir's breath on that first frost morning. You remember the sound of his hooves clacking on marble when he took his first steps. Inside the palace, you remember that God's stunned silence, followed by applause, followed by a quiet, sneaky reversion back to the roles they understood best. You remember choosing not to fight, because sometimes the quietest decisions echo the loudest. It wasn't surrender. It was strategy. And now, as Sleipnir gallops between worlds, crossing time and truth, you know he carries more than just Odin. He carries you. Not just your blood, your brilliance. Not just your magic, your motives. Each leg moves with purpose. Each stride is a punctuation mark in a sentence. Only you and he can read. And if someday, centuries from now, child hears a thunderclap and asks, "What was that?" someone might say, "Just the wind." But another voice softer whisper, "No, that was Loki's legacy, still running. And that's better than a statue. That's immortality." Somewhere in the 9 realms, a scholar unrolls a brittle scroll. Dust rises, eyes squint, and there, between tales of giants and gallows, they find a passage too strange to ignore. The mare who bore the swift one, by trick or fate, gave Asgard its greatest steed and vanished unthanked. They pause, reread, mare, bore, vanished. It's not a mistake, it's not a mistake. It's you, hidden between the lines, beneath centuries of edits and biases and reluctant ink. A footnote in your own legacy, made faint so the gods could shine brighter. Because even now, even after all this time, no one quite knows what to do with you. Loki the trickster, easy, he fits the jokes. He fits the punishment. But Loki the mother, that's messy. Gods aren't supposed to be that complicated, except maybe they are. You've always known what they couldn't admit, that power doesn't come from being right. It comes from being necessary. You were necessary, not liked, not trusted, but needed, and they never want to remember the ones they need. Historians still argue whether your transformation into a mare was voluntary. Some say it was just your usual mischief. Others insist it was a sacrifice. A few quiet, cautious voices dare to suggest that it was both. That it was choice wrapped in necessity, mischief veined with love. And if that's true, then Sleipnir wasn't a trick, he was a gift. You gave the gods exactly what they demanded: security, power, a symbol of their dominance, and still. They called you dangerous, maybe because you reminded them that their power was never theirs. Alone, maybe because you proved that even chaos can create something perfect. But Sleipnir doesn't care about their discomfort. He runs over the fields of Alfheim, where light coils in spirals and ancient elves still whisper his name. Through the shattered peaks of Jotunheim, where giants look up in awe and murmur stories they'll never admit aloud, across Midgard, where thunder is mistaken for weather, and hoofbeats for heartbeats. And sometimes, just sometimes, he runs through the dreams of mortals. Children, mostly. The ones who ask strange questions and draw horses with too many legs on the backs of napkins. The ones who see him in cloud shapes and puddles, and don't understand why adults laugh at. They know him. They don't remember why, but they feel it. Your legacy travels in sideways ways, not in statues or songs, but in instincts and echoes, and questions that won't go away. It's in the tilt of a curious head, in the scratch of a pen, drawing something that doesn't make sense until it does. And you watch it all from your quiet place beneath Yggdrasil, where the roots twist like stories and the stars drip slow through the branches. You don't smile, you don't smirk, you just see. Because that's what mothers do. Not the kind in aprons or lullabies. The other kind. The ancient kind. The kind who birth paradoxes and survive the shame of it. The kind who protect what they've made by letting it go. Sleipnir was never yours to keep. He was yours to launch. And every hoofbeat that echoes through the 9 realms is a reminder Loki may be the trickster, the shapeshifter, the exile, but Loki is also a creator, and nothing the gods do will ever erase that. You never planned to be remembered like this. Not in whispers, not in fragments, not as a question people mutter when the myth doesn't quite line up. But memory is messy, and stories, even messier, they don't behave kind of like you. So when people try to piece you together, trickster here, villain there, mother where, you let them squint and struggle, because maybe that's the point. Maybe you're not supposed to fit, you're supposed to make them think, and he's still doing just that. Odin rides him now, of course. That's the version people know. Odin, high and proud on a horse, too strange to question. Together they barrel through Bifrost, shatter time, stitch realms. It's all so dramatic. But no one asks how Sleipnir feels about it. They assume loyalty. They assume bond. They never stop to wonder if a creature forged from chaos and care might crave something more than servitude. Historians still argue whether Sleipnir serves Odin out of duty or destiny, whether he rides willingly or whether he's still searching for the only voice that ever whispered, "Run," instead of "obey," and you don't say a word. You just watch, because there's something you've learned, something even the Norns whisper about when they think no one's listening. Not all bonds are chains. Some are echoes, some are calls. You felt it not long ago, a tremor in the threads of the world, a ripple like hoofbeats brushing against fate. Sleipnir hesitated, just for a moment, mid-stride, as if he heard something in the air. Something that didn't come from Odin, something older. You know what it was. It was you. A flare of presence, a ripple of magic, a reminder, I'm still here. And for just a heartbeat, he looked back, not physically, not with those all-seeing storm-gray eyes, but deep down, inside, where memory coils like a serpent, where love never really dies. It's not the kind of love they talk about in court songs or sagas. It's the kind that has teeth, that bleeds, that chooses even when it knows how much it will cost. The kind that gives birth to something impossible, then lets it go. You feel it more often now, the pull, the tether. You thought you had severed it. You were wrong. Or maybe you left just enough of it intact, not so he'd come back, not so you'd be needed, but so that neither of you would forget. In the shadowy corridors of Helheim, Sleipnir's hooves echo like memory. In the misty glades of Vanaheim, his breath curls into symbols no one can read. In the deepest parts of yourself, you sense him always moving, always questioning, and maybe that's your greatest triumph. Not the trick, not the child, not even the survival, but the seed. You planted something they couldn't. Uproot a story too strange to burn, a truth too wild to tame, and even if the sagas forget, even if the scrolls fade, he runs. 8-legged, uncatchable yours. The day you finally see him again, the sky is split in half, not with lightning, but with silence dense, expectant, like the breath before a scream or the hush before a hymn. The kind of silence that says, something's coming, and it's him, Sleipnir. His hooves don't touch the ground so much as question it. Every step is a dare, every muscle movement a memory. He's older now if such things apply to God's creations, but no less magnificent. His mane flows like spun twilight, his tail like midnight's last secret, and those legs, 8 of them, each a contradiction of balance and speed, carry the weight of worlds and stories you still can't believe you made real. He slows, he sees you, and for a moment neither of you is divine, neither of you is myth. You are just two souls. Once connected by an accident, now reunited by design. He doesn't speak, he never has, but his eyes hold questions, not sharp ones, not bitter, just the kind that ask, were you lonely too? But most days, beneath all of that, you were simply waiting. Waiting to know he remembered. Waiting to know he still recognized you. You lift a hand, not to call him, not to claim him, but to let him know you're still here. Still the strange parent who turned into a mare, still the uninvited guest at fate's banquet, still the god who once whispered, "Go where they won't," and he steps forward, not all the way, just close enough. Whether this moment even happened. But here's what they'll never understand. Some returns don't need roads. Some reunions don't need words. He lowers his head. You press your forehead against his for just 1 second, like an ancient blessing. No apologies, no explanations, just presence then. Like fog, he disappears again, galloping off into the horizon of possibility, where stories ride wild and endings never behave. And you stay behind. You smile, not the mischievous smirk that made you infamous, but the quiet, full one that no one ever got to see, because something in the world is finally right, not fixed, not finished, but seen, and that's more than enough. So now, as the echoes of hoofbeats fade into the corners of your thoughts, take a deep breath, feel it settle in your chest, the slow, steady reminder that stories don't always gallop to clean conclusions. Sometimes they drift, sometimes they pause, sometimes they just ride away, leaving behind a strange, its meaning wrapped in mischief, in transformation, power of becoming something unexpected. You've wandered the 9 realms in the shadow of a horse with 8 legs. You've watched a trickster turn parent, a god become vulnerable, and a creature born of deception run headlong into legend. You've stood at the edge of silence and witnessed reunion without redemption, peace without explanation. Let that stay with you a while, not loudly, gently. Let it hum under your skin like a remembered tune. Let it remind you that the world is vast and messy and filled with strange, beautiful things that defy categorization, like Sleipnir, like Loki, like you. So now ease back into your breath. Let your limbs go loose. Let your thoughts soften around the edges like paper soaked in moonlight. Journey's done for tonight. The wind is calm, and the road,